Donald Trump pardons General Michael Flynn. What does the Biden presidency look like? And next week, the Ark is on the road in Queensland. This is The Ark with Riccardo, Bosi. So we're heading to Queensland, apparently.
Oh, we are, mate. We've just wrapped up 3.5 weeks of Zoom meetings with members across the country. 4 nights a week for 3.5 weeks, 2 hours a pop. Been fantastic. The feedback's been great. The questions are right on the money. We have a very smart and awake population, so that's exciting. And now, up to Queensland, we're doing northern New South Wales, and then we cross the border about just early December, and we're going from the southeast corner all the way west to Toowoomba, Blackhall, all the way up to Isa, across then east to Townsville and down the coast. And it'll be there for about a month, so it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it, guys. It's going to be really great because I was just telling Riccardo before we started the show, last week we reached 300,000 people with our episode. The week before that, we reached 500,000 people with our episode. So total right now, across the 12 weeks, we've reached 2.14 million people. That is phenomenal. That is really amazing.
Big numbers.
And look, it's all credit to our viewers because they keep sharing the message. It resonates with them. And, you know, we're not particularly brilliant. We're just presenting the truth. And the people really, it's resonating with them. And I think they're pretty smart to see that. So it'll be great to put some names to faces, to especially some of the positive comments we've been getting and phone calls we've been getting. So yeah, guys, we're really excited to get out there and meet you all. So I'll also be joining in Queensland. I'll be seeing a number of the different events. I won't be there for all of them, but I'm going to try and cover as many as I can for you guys, because this isn't just about, you know, the channel. This isn't just about, you know, building a party. This is about recovering Australia, or even giving it back to the people, because the people have never had it. And I think this will be really great. So before we get started into the show, the donors of this show have been very, very generous. And I'm very thankful for you guys, because I'm technically hired by you now. And I really appreciate it. I prefer it that way. I don't want a private employer. I'd rather it be decentralized with you guys, because there's no big money behind this show, that's for sure. It's just you guys, it's individual donors, and I'm liable to you. And the moment I stop being transparent, I know that is when the carpet will be pulled out from under me. And I think that's a good good contract to have. So we made our first hire this week, believe it or not, and this is the first time you've heard about this, Riccardo. Each week we're going to be having a segment with this person. They're not being paid anything, but it's this guy. Jammal is a stooge. He came back. He came back again. So he started his account on the 15th of November 2020. You can see that he's got 1 subscriber. Guess who's subscribed? Oh, look, it says subscribed. That's me. I'm subscribed to his channel. More love to you, mate. Keep it up. I can see you've commented 27 times on my videos in the last 6 days. Well done. You must really love it. These are some of the comments he had, Riccardo. So some people picked up on the fact that he's being paid. He said, "I know paid. I speak truth against racist Aussie." Guys, this is how it's written.
Is that you or me?
I'm not making fun of him. I know, right?
No, who's the racist Aussie? I'm trying to figure it out.
Yet to clarify. I think it might be both of us.
Okay.
Australia belonged to Australian people, to Aboriginal people, not you racist white people. China support Aboriginal people to take back land off you Aussie. Look, I get it, your English is still developing, but just give it a bit more work. Just read over it a few times, put it into Google, and it'll fix a few things up for you. A few more comments. This is another one he said. He said, Biden win, get over it. In China, we celebrate Biden victory. After Biden win, Aussie beg China to sign trade deal. I like that one. Riccardo spreading anti-China lies. We know cook dog. White women love Chinese man because we smart. Okay. Jammal, why you gay? Even if I was gay, what's the problem? But that's our first hire, guys. Look, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, pulling up wood chips right now.
I didn't know we're having a comedy segment, but okay, I like this.
I've got to warm you up, Riccardo.
This has got legs.
This is the love of the party. Please don't stop. I really appreciate these comments, and I am highlighting this one because I haven't seen anyone else create an account just for me with my name in it. And I'm feeling the love this week. I really am. I love it.
Can I share some love back to young, whatever this guy's name is?
Yeah, shoot.
I wasn't going to raise this because we're still doing some investigations, but since he raised it, I never wanted to take a step back. Okay, whatever your name is. Perhaps you'd like to do some investigation on Keswick Island, just off Mackay, or Keswick. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. In South Australia, it's Keswick. Might be Keswick, doesn't matter. Apparently, massive Chinese building going on, making life miserable for the locals on the island. It's basically an outpost of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, I wasn't going to raise it, and this is just a statement, an email. We receive lots of email, good intelligence coming in from all around the country, and in fact the world, but mostly the country. And so Keswick Island apparently is now an outpost of the Chinese Communist Party, and they're making life miserable for the locals. So maybe we can get some verification from Queensland. Some people can write and say, yes, it's true, or no, it's complete rubbish. But there you go. So right back at you. No, we're not spelling lies about China. We can talk about the Uyghurs, and we can talk about Falun Gong, and we can talk about countless problems that the Chinese Communist Party has foisted on its people.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could start with the wet markets. I'm not in favour of another pandemic. But moving on. So that is hopefully we'll hear from him next week, guys. I hope we didn't turn him off. But that is our first hire. So last week we broke the news that there was a Afghanistan report that was released, and we were obviously quite on edge because of some of the lies that were thrown out there, some of the kabuki theatre, as you said, that was thrown out there. Have you dug into this a bit more this week, Riccardo, and what have you found?
Well, let's just put it this way. There are Scud missiles flying across the serving and retired ADF internet, and the comments. There's a lot of anger out there, a lot of deep and profound anger, but here's some advice I received. I received legal advice that the Biden Report any of it may not be admissible in a court of law. And so if a soldier or a number of soldiers choose to push back, and I'd recommend they get legal advice on whether they should or not, but if they push back, good old mate Angus and the entire setup could be in trouble, because it is yet to be demonstrated that this can be used in a court of law if the diggers push back. And so punishments are being meted out before, what's it called? A complete judicial finding has been made, as in evidence presented, allegations made, and innocence or guilt determined, regardless of statements taken. Yes, I'd done it. Well, let's have a look at that. And so the whole setup could be in trouble, just on that ground alone. Next, what else we heard? Oh, the responses from the Prime Minister, excuse me.
That's all right, we'll cut that. The responses from our erudite leaders. Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison was distressed, apparently. Well, not as distressed as covering up for 28 VIP pedophiles. So I've got to ask the question, what are we being distracted from looking at here? So the PM's distressed, but not so distressed about VIP pedophiles that he wants to pursue that. So good on you, Scotty. Silent Scott. Then we had our Defence Minister. Our Defence Minister. She said she was physically ill when she read the report. She said she was physically ill when she read the report. Really? Well, Defence Minister, you should toughen up, princess, because we don't pay you to respond like a guest on Oprah. We expect you to respond like an adult with an iron constitution and do your bloody job. So the fact that you felt physically ill might be good sales pitch to the great uninformed, but we know exactly what you're doing and we know exactly why you're doing it. You're useless. As a Defence Minister, you have no clue what you're up to. You really don't. And what was the last one? Oh, Andrew Hastie. Oh, good old Andrew Hastie, the go-to guy for the government whenever they need a cover-up. Not a cover-up, because that insinuates there's something illegal going on, but certainly a distraction. Let's call it a distraction. So he wrote a piece. It was eloquent. It was poignant. It brought a tear to the retired generals in the RSL's eyes. They really did. And he spoke about his experience on selection and the shame he felt. Andrew, you're not supposed to feel shame. You didn't do anything wrong. So you don't feel shame. You get in there and fix it. You're part of the freaking government, mate. Technically speaking, you're not. You're part of the parliament. So how about you grab your colleagues by the scruff and fix them up? Oh, and by the way, Andrew, you didn't mention failure of command. Not once.
So as lovely as your piece was, it was completely irrelevant, and a lovely sales pitch again to the uninformed. But I can tell you, mate, you, Angus, and the Minister, you got some scuds coming your way from retired and currently serving defence personnel. They're not getting away with it. Now, one more point. Remember how we said that the brass might be protected? Who was in command of the various organisations that were deployed? Well, there's no conflict of interest here, but good old Angus was actually commander of the Joint Task Group 633 in Operation Slipper, which was running the war in Afghanistan. So now Angus is assessing whether he himself is actually culpable to any degree. Any conflict of interest there, folks? Angus didn't tell you that, did he?
God,
no, of course not.
Of course.
Good old Major General Angus, he got a Distinguished Service Cross for that sterling effort of leadership of the Joint Task Group. How about, Angus, you hand in your medal yourself. Lead from the front by example. Now, it's easy for me to sit back here and say that, isn't it? Because I'm not in your situation. Well, let me tell you a personal story. I'm not proud of it, but here's the truth. This is what a man of honour does. You poltroon. Here's what a man of honour does. After I returned from my tour in the Middle East as the National Commander in Kuwait, very short little tour, but I was there, I got a call from my replacement. And he said, mate, they're checking up on the phone bill and yours is a little bit big. And I said, no problem, thank you very much. So what had happened was, when I took over, I arrived there and the officer from whom I took over, he said, look, here's the phone, it's a sat phone, but you can make the odd call home to check on the family and make sure they're okay. No problem. There were some family issues that were not insignificant, let's say, and I spent a lot more time on that phone than I should have. Full responsibility. Anyway, I got back the US, because the sat link was through a US provider, raised the bill and said, I had a few questions to ask. So I got the call and I went straight up to the Chief of Operations at Headquarters Australian Theatre, Naval Captain. I was a Lieutenant Colonel at the time. And I said, sir, I have prepared a letter of resignation. And he said, why is that? And I explained that there were family issues that I was dealing with. And I won't mention exactly who or what because I don't want to embarrass them. I said, I've prepared a letter of resignation because I have caused embarrassment to the Special Operations Group. I've caused embarrassment to Headquarters Australian Theatre, and I've caused this embarrassment between the Australian government and the US government. So here's my letter of resignation. I've got it ready if you want it. And he said, well, explain yourself. I explained myself why. And he said, could you have used the Army Community Services to deal with the issue because they have that backup to support families back at home? And I said, no, the individuals involved aren't likely to be interested in doing that. He said, okay, let me deal with it. I went back to my office and got ready to resign. See, Angus, that's what a man of honour does. You take responsibility for your mistakes. So I went back to the office, started preparing to move out. I got a call sometime later saying, look, we've got the bill in. It's not as outrageous as everybody thought. Pay the bill and we'll just move on. And I said, no problem, I can do that. Paid the bill and we moved on. But see, that's a different, Angus, because what you're teaching every subordinate in the military is cover your ass. And that's not leadership, mate. I'm really sorry, it's not leadership. So when you cock up, you take responsibility and fall on your sword. Falling on your sword is an expression we use in the military. It comes from the Japanese in World War II, where on a point of honour, whatever that honour was, they would commit ceremonial seppuku, or harakiri as it's also known. That's falling on your sword. Well, sometimes, mate, you've got to fall on your sword. Like I did. I went up and said, I cocked up, I'll take the hit, I will now resign to save the ADF, Special Operations and the relationship. That's how you lead, Angus and Rick and everybody else that's covering their ass right now. So, well, let's leave it at that, because it's coming your way. It's coming right back at you, mate, and it's going to come back to the every officer that served and had responsibility and is trying to get out of it. So there you go.
Why is it a lot of these veterans are so fed up with this? What exactly is going through their heads right now?
It's typical. Diggers hate officers because officers cover their ass. Now, as I said last week, if they hang out everybody in that chain of command to at least examine, stand up and tell me what you knew and didn't know, then everyone will say, fair enough, one rule for all.
Yep.
See, there's a rule in the military, officers eat last, which means you look after your men first. Always look after your men first. And in a physical sense, you don't eat till they've eaten. Well, these guys are the typical officers that eat first, and they forget their men, hang them out to dry. We've got generals that built their entire careers and promotions on rotating diggers through Afghanistan over and over and over again, and then they just wandered off at their next promotion because that's all they're interested in. An officer has to serve his men. That's the best officer. It is service to the men, not to your career, not to your next promotion. And that's the difference. This is disgusting. It is so utterly disgusting to a soldier. Civvies don't get it, and I understand that.
No, yeah.
But to a soldier, to watch an officer sell you out like that, it just reinforces every prejudice diggers have against the commissioned ranks.
That's why I ask, because city folk over here, you know, I did a little bit of cadets in school, but that's nothing compared to what you guys are doing. It's a completely different infrastructure.
An officer fights and dies with his men. And the moment he doesn't do that, he's forfeited his right to be saluted, he's forfeited his right to be called sir, and he's certainly forfeited his right to get a Distinguished Service Cross, Angus. So how about you hand that in and lead from the front by example?
Angus was in command at the time.
2011 to 2012, Joint Task Group 633, Operation Slipper.
I'm sorry, that is absolute shit from him. I can't believe he's trying to pull this crap. That's insane.
It's not the cock up. And look, for every young officer out there that thinks I'm sort of Beelzebub and besmirching the military, it's not the cock up, it's the cover up. Remember that, folks. It's not the cock up, it's the cover up. You cock up, I did it, ready to resign. An entire career because of phone calls, because somebody had dramas back home. Should I have fixed it differently? Maybe. But that's what you do. That's how you lead from the front by example, not from the rear by direction. Okay, that's that. Let me just jump on very quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Now, what are they distracting us from? Because they're going to milk this, they're going to continue this going, and the government's going to love it. You know why?
Why is that?
Because they're distracting us from a ton of other stuff they don't want us to know about.
Like what?
Let's stay in the military. Veteran suicides. Absolute disaster. What's being done? Nothing. Nothing effective, because there's this whole joke, and the guys know it. There are those that are too crazy. Those aren't crazy enough, and the ones that get help are the ones in the middle who are just crazy enough.
Yeah.
And the really crazy one get pumped full of drugs by the psychiatrists, and the others just get left to hang themselves because they've had enough. So veteran suicides. What else are they distracting us from? Because this is the old magician's trick. It's misdirection. Watch my right hand, but don't look at what my left's doing. And that's what they're doing. And the government always hangs on to newsworthy articles to distract. What else we got? Oh, look at the pedophile issue I mentioned earlier. Mandatory vaccinations. There you go. They're not talking about mandatory vaccinations. It's not mandatory, said Scott Morrison. Really? Really? We'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely.
We'll be talking about mandatory vax, because it's not mandatory, but if you don't have it, you're in trouble. What else are they covering up? Oh, the Defence Enhancement Bill that's now being referred for investigation, where foreign military and foreign police can come into Australia and be immune from prosecution. And as we discussed previously, good old Craig Kelly let the cat out of the bag, because the bill just talks about Defence Force aid to the civil community, which is fire, drought, flood. But he said it's about Defence Force aid to the civil power, which is the application of lethal force. And I can tell you what, I don't want anybody applying any foreigner applying lethal force in Australia.
Go to episode 7, guys. We go through it in episode 7.
What else? Countless other issues they don't want you to pay attention to, simply because it's uncomfortable for them. But there's plenty there, folks. There really are.
I mean, the religious freedom thing's completely been thrown under the carpet right now. You know, they're making headway, but it's not as big an issue as before 2020. I mean, there's a bunch of things that need to be solved, guys, that haven't been solved. I mean, did we all forget the start of the year, the farmers were in trouble? Did we all forget there was a drought? Did we all forget about the bushfires, that there was all this arson?
And no resolution, and here's why. And let me just go through this with you. I've mentioned this before. The new International Economic Order, Implications for Australia. Report from the Senate Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defence, February 1980. Now let me read one line. I've told you about this before. This is the information that was going to destroy Australia, our sovereignty, our manufacturing, our primary production, everything. So let me read you one line, and you can get this online on Trove. This inquiry made it obvious that there is limited knowledge of the new international economic order issues throughout the community. The public perception of what the new international economic order means generally and to Australians specifically should be promoted not only by the government and its instrumentalities, but by the media, unions, organisations, academic bodies and informed individuals. Promoted. It has to be promoted. They have to lie to us. So all these other issues they're distracting us from. Okay, more evidence. You've heard me talk about W. Cleon Skousen wrote The Naked Communist. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't Googled the 45 Goals of Communism, please do. Now, he wrote a follow-up book. That's called The Naked Capitalist. And it's a review of a commentary by Dr. Carol Quigley, who wrote a book called Tragedy and Hope. Now, Quigley is a self-confessed insider with the globalists, and he gives an illuminating history of the globalist agenda for this century, the entire century, who did what to whom and how. And let me just give you a couple of examples. Again, this has been going on since forever, and this is where you've been deceived. And again, I want to read it so we get it right. Let's talk about the Korean War. The Allies were not permitted to win the Korean War. They were actually prevented from winning. They could have won. In fact, South Korea was supposed to not exist. North Korea and China were supposed to win the entire peninsula. That was the globalist goal. And again, there's evidence there. And so we fought and died in Korea for what? Against their own people, their own leadership. Communist China and the nationalists. Chiang Kai-shek was a democratic Chinese leader who fought with the Americans during the war. And General Wiedemeyer, who was the American liaison and commander of, over there, had a good relationship with Chiang Kai-shek. And Chiang Kai-shek, after the war, was going to establish a democratic China. Think about that for a minute. And Wiedemeyer wrote to General Marshall, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs at the time, and Marshall said, no, you don't. You have to let Mao Zedong's communists into Chiang Kai-shek's democratic government. Well, Wiedemeyer said that's ridiculous because you're going to hand over 500 million Chinese to the Communist Party. Well, Wiedemeyer was muzzled, and Chiang Kai-shek was disarmed by George Marshall, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. The United States globalists gave China to Mao Zedong. Physically handed it to him. Why? Because they needed China. China is a creation of the globalists. More evidence? Henry Ford provided engines for the Wehrmacht. How we feeling uncomfortable now, are we? The globalists supporting Adolf Hitler's war machine. There's a book written by an American brigadier called War is a Racket, because that's all it is. And they send good men and women off to die for their globalist causes. They're never allowed to win the fight because there's another agenda.
Does it all come back to money, though?
Absolutely. It's money and power.
Money and
power. But it's the power, because once you get enough money, you want power.
Yeah, because I mean, in the situation, and I contrast this with Russia and China. Russia and the Americans, they had a good relationship going. You know, one side would make money from selling arms, and the other side would also make money from selling arms. They
need two sides.
And then they'd go home, and then they'll drink and enjoy their family time with their own scotches or whatever. But with China wants to consume everything.
China, and the book actually makes the point. Quigley actually laughs in his book, Tragedy and Hope. He actually laughs at the good, decent people who are fighting, because he says you're aiming too low if you're hitting the communists. The communists are just the tools of the people that actually run the planet. And there's a ton of evidence. It's just there. They're just the tools, but the communists, they're just delivering for what the globalists want. Now, what's this got to do with Afghan Report and distractions? This is how far back this goes.
It's a big leap. I mean,
it's a big leap, and that's why I held the book up. Read it. There's so much to catch up on, folks. You've got no idea. Americans are losing control of their destiny, and it's basically politicians meddling in what's going on. For example, and they gives a series of examples, and let me tell you how they turned a problem into a worse situation. Racial minorities. Right, the problem in the United States. And the idea was to expose these minorities to greater opportunities. So what did Washington do? By its actual laws, promoted into explosive tinderbox for another civil war, which is reaching its climax now. We've had these racial wars for decades in the US, actively promoted by politicians in Washington, and the same's happening here. Yeah. Rising crime rates, social schemes and grossly permissive judicial decisions multiplied the crime rate. So there's a problem, here's the solution, and the solution makes the problem worse. Educational opportunity for our children needs to be improved. And again, money and policies that seriously discredited and collapsed public schools, the actual effect of politicians' decisions. So they're not just incompetent, lazy and corrupt. There's been this intentional strategy to destroy the country. The problem of moral decay, and something have to do about it. So what did they do? Sex education and so-called sensitivity training, which exploded the problem into a contagion of totally permissive decadence and moral degeneracy. They had the problem of pornography and obscenity. So what did they do? Washington smashed what little legal protection existed and created a flood of filth into the otherwise normally straight country. And it just goes on and on and on. And so this stuff, if it's happening in the US, it's happening here, and we can see it. And how do they do it? Last one. And I'm sorry if I belabor this point, but this is critical. You've been brainwashed. People believe that they have their opinions based on their own careful, rational analysis of the facts. Well, they haven't had facts for decades. And bit by bit by bit, they've been brainwashed. And they actually believe now that they are responsible for their own decisions. And we've spoken about the movies, we've spoken about the media, we've spoken about the politicians, we've spoken about judicial decisions that all shape us. And that's it, we've been brainwashed. And these are all books. There are dozens and dozens of these books that explain what's been going on and what I've been alluding to now for some couple of years, publicly at least.
Yeah.
It's all here. And once you see what they're up to and how they're doing it, it's disgusting. It really is. And that's what we're overcoming. And that's why I said A1's objective is decades in the execution.
Yeah.
Anyway, so every time you see a politician talk about something on TV and you see it's got legs, the story continues and lasts more than 2.5 minutes, it's because somebody wants it to continue, and it guaranteed there's an agenda behind it because there's something they don't want you to see.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. I think a lot of people would get overwhelmed listening to this and it'd break their mind. Because a lot of this stuff is explained by, just normal corruption on an individual basis. The person's just trying to make money for themselves, for their family. And that is true to an extent, but there is, people discount that. People discount the global stuff that's happening and the bigger cabal scheme that's going on. And they think it's too much of a individual sort of...
You wanted to know, would you like to know what the world thinks of Australia? Okay. Australia is to the world what Adelaide is to Australia. We're an embarrassing, irrelevant... Embarrassing, we're just silly and focused on nonsense. We're such an irrelevance. The people are anyway. The land, they want the land and the resources. They want to control that.
Yeah.
But the people of Australia, they think you're stupid and cowardly, the average punter. And they're about to discover that the average... While the elites are, they're stupid and cowardly without a doubt. But they're going to find out the Australian people are anything but.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they're people around the world, they forget that it was Australia that delivered Jerusalem into the hands of the Brits. 60,000 Brits couldn't deliver it in quite a few hours, yet the Australian Light Horsemen, 800 of them, delivered the Beersheba, which was the gateway to Jerusalem. And it actually ended up freeing Lebanon as well, not just the whole of Israel, which is the whole reason I'm here, guys. Let's move on to individual corruption.
Or allegations thereof.
Well, I don't know, Riccardo. This is looking pretty solid. Alexandra Smith over at the Sydney Morning Herald, phenomenal journalist, guys. We always rag on politicians, on journalists. Last week we gave credit where credit was due with Pauline Hanson, and other politicians have been speaking out. Well, I rag on the legacy of media all the time. He's a journalist doing quality work. Alexandra Smith, she's doing some great work at the Sydney Morning Hamas. The Premier's office this week, they've been having a bunch of issues and they've been under heavy scrutiny this year with these grants they've been giving out. See, grants, guys, as you know, it's giving out money to certain areas for certain things to help them out with problems. Now, grants can be used often by politicians in power to grant favours for them or even get votes. Well, it's been revealed that a lot of these grants were granted to a lot of these areas that ended up being won by coalition seats in the 2019 election. So they were put out before the 2019 election. It won them votes, and then there's basically, I don't know how to explain this, guys. Do you call it corruption? Do you call it just blatant not caring about the rules set down. But it's not. This isn't chicken's feed, guy. This is $250 million worth of, funding that's been coming out. So the Premier's office, they've been on a lot of scrutiny. They ended up shredding the evidence of these things, the papers. They destroyed the computers showing where all these grants went to. And they've been on a lot of scrutiny to find that and to recover it. And just this morning, the Premier's office recovered them mysteriously. They found them. And the shredded documents revealing that the staff directly determined projects to be funded under the controversial $250 million council grants that were given. Are you surprised, Riccardo? God knows I'm not. I know heaps of people work in council.
No, absolutely not. No, this is your traditional pork barrelling. And both sides of politics are happy with it because when they get into power, they get to do the same thing. There's an easy enough solution to this, and that is real-time public disclosure of all expenditure.
Yeah, who's got that policy going, Riccardo?
Oh, I don't know.
Who's that?
Maybe us.
Maybe you.
But on top of that, and I'm glad you raised this because what an A1 government would do at state and federal level is anybody that gets public money, i.e. the people's money, we've got no problem with that if it's warranted, whether it's a grant or a contribution to something. But just like any good joint venture, I want to see their books. Open your entire books. We'll get them audited with a bottle of Drano and a wire brush before any organisation gets a cent from the people, not from the government, from the people, because government doesn't have money, we know that. We want to see your books. And if there's any funny business going on, we're going to send you to jail. So no more of this nonsense going on. We want to see the money. We want to see your organisation. Let's say a university. Oh, I don't know. Let's pick a university with some communists on their board like Sydney University. Let's open up your books and see every cent and every piece of funding coming in.
Yeah.
Because if you're being funded by people who are, let's say, destructive or organisations that are destructive to Australia, we're not paying you. In fact, we might get you investigated. So you want people's money, you prove to the people it's worthwhile. You prove to the people that you're clean. You prove to the people you're not getting money from communists. You prove to the people you're not getting them from despotic Islamic regimes in the Middle East.
China,
Qatar.
Yeah. And there's a lot of conspiracy, guys. Look, billions of dollars have been given to, I think it was Harvard.
Let's audit every organisation that puts its hand up for government money. And when I say audit, I mean, with a rotor-rooter. It's not going to be nice. Every single last one of them. So the accountants, you might be out of a job because we're going to simplify the tax system, but you're going to get plenty of work auditing the crooked bastards that are taking money. So this doesn't surprise me. Yeah. But we got as usual, a good practical solution to the high-sounding words.
Yeah.
So keep going, Gladys. Keep going.
Yeah. All right, accountants. If you're, I strongly recommend doing a law degree as well to cut your teeth on a few of these corruption cases. I think it'd serve you quite well. Plenty of work in the pipeline. So you mentioned that we've got these vaccines being pushed. Now this week, Alan Joyce said that there's basically, I know. Look at his head. The Irishman has a funny head.
I'm sorry.
I know. So he said there's a no jab, no fly policy. It's really funny because a day later, the International Airport Transport Association, who's the organisation that represents Qantas, they've basically been the peak body that represents them. They've distanced themselves from Qantas and said, no, we don't agree with that. That's actually not a good thing for our industry. Let's not do that.
It's almost as if certain draconian laws are being imposed in Australia that are not being imposed internationally. No one in the media is actually pushing back on it, like no lockdown in Japan and virtually no cases of COVID, etc. I mean, and it's almost like, and they call this guy the Irish leprechaun, and it's not nice to call him the Irish leprechaun. I mean, he's a top CEO of a top Australian company. Well, it's not Australian anymore, but you get my drift. And so to call him the Irish leprechaun would be offensive, so I'm not going to call him the Irish leprechaun. But no jab, no fly. This is it. They are slipping it in and slipping it in, slipping it in. Not mandatory. Well, not mandatory. But funny things are going on with Qantas anyway, because I heard very early in the piece, this is in the days where we're still being told, no, just a couple of weeks and we'll be done. Just a couple of weeks. Okay. They planned the mothballing of countless Qantas jets well in advance. So it's almost as if, I'm not suggesting they did because that would be wrong, but it's almost like they knew in advance how long this was going to last and what was going to happen. That it wasn't a matter of like they drip fed us, just 2 more weeks, 1 more month, look, another couple of weeks, we've had a spike, they dragged it out. And yet Qantas was mothballing planes immediately and shutting down staff and locking them out. So it's almost like the man I won't call the Irish leprechaun knew what was going on. It's almost like somebody at the high level, they have a plan and they're implementing it into Australia.
Yeah.
No jab, no fly. And this is just a continuation. No jab, no job. No jab, no travel. No jab, no kids. We've said it before and I'll say it again for the new viewers. The states passed legislation to force vaccinations on you years ago.
Western Australia, 2016?
2016.
Check it out, guys. It's actually really scary. What do you do?
What do we do?
What do you do?
Okay. Look, we've done these Zooms, as I said, for the last 3.5 weeks, 2 hours, 4 nights a week, and an executive meeting on the other night. And the question they say to me is, got the big picture, love the strategy, love the medium to long-term stuff, but what do we do now? And I say it's very simple. Build a party, build a party, build a party. I said it last week, but I'll say it again this week so the new viewers can hear it. If we had a protest now and 1,000 people turned up, we have a problem. If we have a protest and a 10,000 turn up, the police have got a problem.
Yep.
If we have a protest now and 100,000 turn up, the politicians have got a problem. Yep. If we have a protest and 1 million turn up, we win. It's as simple as that, is sheer weight of numbers. Because it is only with our consent do these people continue to do this. The moment we withhold consent, we just get on with our lives and ignore them. And our lives won't change, but theirs will.
Yeah.
Build a party, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
The biggest thing I see around the world is it's the problem with the Australian people, because you've heard me use this analogy a number of times, that Australia is at chapter 3, and I move these numbers around. Australia is at chapter 3, the US is at chapter 8, and the UK is at chapter 15, in terms of how far they've deteriorated. Now, the problem with Australia, and the benefit with Australia, is we haven't deteriorated as much as these other countries. But the benefit is that we have more time to fix it. But the problem is that people aren't politically active and you have to activate them. So I guess the real solution lies in how do you activate people and get those big marches and get them reading up and informed. And so, I mean, the little part I'm trying to play now, guys, is basically getting alternative media and the hot, new, fresh media going in Australia to remove legacy media. Not by force, by competency. I wouldn't have a job with the people if they thought the media was doing a good job, if they were telling the truth. They could end me overnight if they did a good job. That's the funny thing. But they won't, because they are stuck in these bubbles, and I'm being genuine here. They're stuck in these bubbles. They're surrounded by people with the same opinions, where they don't learn new things, and they're in this. They've all grown up as a very elitist sort of people that have certain beliefs. And if you don't have the same beliefs, if you don't believe with the monolith, then you get cast out. It's tribalist. And that's what we've seen, with Democrats in the US as an example. Now, what does that mean? Well, my solution is we need alternative media. People like Monica Smith, and we've talked about her a number of times, and she's doing a phenomenal job in Victoria. In fact, this will be the only time I actually say this, the only group right now I'll say this to. But if you guys are thinking about donating to me, but you live in Victoria, don't donate to me. Donate to Monica Smith. I'm not even kidding. She's doing a phenomenal job. She's doing some really good work as a citizen journalist, and I think that she could really make a difference down there.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Do both.
Yeah.
$5 a month to Monica, $5 a month to Joel, a couple of cups of coffee, and you're getting rare insights across all of Joel's programs and what Monica's doing. It doesn't cost much, folks, but it'll be the method by which mainstream or legacy, let's call them legacy media, becomes irrelevant. You can still watch their entertaining shows, but if you want information, you want current affairs, you want clear, concise, factual opinion, $5 a month to Joel, $5 a month to Monica. Go for it.
Yeah, and I think you said you'll know more than everyone else in the office. You'll be very informed.
And once again, this educative process that Australians are going through, and they're lapping it up. They're loving this stuff. We don't need everybody. We just need enough. Please remember that, folks. We don't need everybody. We don't need 25 million Australians. That'd be great, but we won't get that. Washington only had 20% support of his population and they won.
Yeah.
We can do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So be more active, guys. And on top of that, don't write off, we talk about politicians in very broad terms often on this show, but we've talked about, people like Joel Fitzgibbons, who was ashamed to see him leave the Labor front bench, someone who brought intelligence to the climate change discussion. And we've talked about One Nation being the only party that opposed the Great Reset in the Senate. There are good politicians, guys. There are good politicians that are good sometimes, and other times, maybe not so much. We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. That's going to happen. But don't write off all politicians. Please don't fall into that trap, because what's happened from what I've seen is people have been so disconnected. We haven't had leaders in our community, whether that be in the church or whether that be in other institutions, that have stood up and said, you need to oppose this. The amount of churches that were silent on the abortion argument, when we had the Middle Eastern churches speaking up and filling Martin Place, was phenomenal. This is not... Can you see how the abdication of responsibility leads to the wrong sort of people seizing the power? Can you see how that happens? So when you see something be put up, when you see a bill being put up, you need to talk about it with your friends and family. That does nothing, by the way. That does nothing. But what it does do is it prepares you to do an action. What action can you do? One of them is actually rallying. Another is emailing your representative saying, I will never vote for you again if you vote for this. And my family won't. How big's my family? Look at my eyebrows. Over 1,000. And that's how you wield power. And by talking to other people, they then have to do that. You can't just sit around the table and say, this is crap and this is that. And it's got to lead to an action. And that is tangible, okay? That's tangible. Even then, they may not listen. So then you have to be ready to pull the trigger and be ready to campaign at the right times, or give to the political parties that you think are going to do the job. And at that point, then you throw them out. It's not just about emails. It's not just about watching. There's actually a practical aspect to this. And if you don't do that, then you're going to end up in a situation where I think the US might be going right now, Riccardo. And this leads into the next topic. Did you have anything else to add on that?
No, that's good.
So we have some excellent news. Donald Trump has, just this morning, so this is breaking news, Donald Trump has pardoned General Michael Flynn. Now, General Michael Flynn, I've talked about a couple of weeks ago, he was targeted, and I use that word advisedly, he was targeted by Clinton allies and the Biden and the Obama presidency, by the intelligence agencies. They were trying to see if they could get him on a technicality. So what did they do? They pulled up a over 100-year-old piece of legislation from the government, which was called the Logan Act, which is something that which was something that Scott Morrison helped Joe Biden recently violate. Now, the Logan Act meant that you can't negotiate with foreign powers on behalf of the US. You can't act like that. But the problem is, General Michael Flynn, at that point that he was doing that, Donald Trump was President-elect Donald Trump. It was confirmed because Hillary Clinton conceded. So that means it's solid. Not like now Joe Biden, Donald Trump hasn't conceded. It's not legal yet. It's not formal. So General Michael Flynn was targeted because he was talking naturally to his, I think, Ukrainian or Russian counterpart, which he's perfectly entitled to do, so that there's a smooth transition. Yet, he was targeted nonetheless, and they caught him on a technicality. He said something slightly out of line, and then he retracted that. Well, Donald Trump pardoned him, and he's right to do so. Now, whether you think pardons are, something that the president should be able to just throw out, and, I think Obama did over 1,000 pardons. Donald Trump's he's done under 50 or something, which is crazy. It is good to see a good man pardoned. But why is Donald Trump doing it now? Is he on his way out? And I guess we'll be investigating that a bit right now.
I tell you what, I'm beginning to really appreciate even more the US system of government. I like the fact that they have a popularly elected president, because then the president is responsive to the people and not the party. I really like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that he can take executive action within very constrained areas, but he can take that executive action is an extremely powerful weapon. Whoa. I'm getting some ideas for our constitutional convention.
But you are. Hope Mr. What was it, Professor Flint? Is it Professor
Yeah,
Flint?
David, Professor, Emeritus Professor of Law David Flynn.
I hope he's paying attention. Guys, we've got to do this summary of the US election. Not much has happened this week, but a lot has happened this week. And it's sounding a lot the same from week to week. So this is how I'm going to make it nice and simple for you guys. Here's the map. We've got these 6 states. Technically, Donald Trump hasn't quite... technically, Donald Trump's actually on 160 electoral college votes, and Joe Biden is like under 100 right now in terms of which states have certified the votes. So that's what it is. This is what's prospected by Google right now. Now, Google was the biggest donor. I don't know if you guys know this, but Google's parent company, I think ABC something, they were the biggest donor to the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. So just FYI. And we'll get into that a bit later. But we've got these states. What's the big things that have happened this week? Well, Pennsylvania tried to ram through their certification so that it becomes solid. But a judge just this morning, and I read it, 5 a.m. this morning when I was up, I read that another judge has stopped that. So the governor was wrong to try and ram this through, and a judge stopped that.
It was actually unconstitutional, I understand.
Yeah, it was, absolutely. It's not meant to run through that quickly. And it took Tim Pool off guard. So Pennsylvania is still in play. Nevada and Arizona are still in play. Arizona, there's some crazy things that are happening there, and Nevada, I think the vote's been sort of frozen there. With Pennsylvania, they're starting to do these hearings in a bunch of different places. Actually, on that point, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Nevada, the Trump legal team are actually going around these places, and Trump is there with them. They're going around holding these hearings with the Republican legislatures there, and they're going through a lot of these evidence. And it's very fascinating to hear that. In fact, I've actually got one clip for you guys. One of the crazy things that I actually found happening over there, which is just insane. You guys are gonna freak out. So this is the Pennsylvania state legislator sitting down in one of these hearings, and they get a witness to speak on some of the issues that they're finding and the irregularities. And you've got Rudy Giuliani sort of leading this. But have a listen to what this guy says. He's talking about the curve in votes and how there's sudden sort of jumps in the vote counts that we all saw.
Normally you would expect to see a smooth curve going up, not any big spikes. That's kind of what Greg was talking about, the anomalies of loading and uploading those votes. So that big spike that occurs there is a prime indicator of fraudulent voting.
And that's 604,000 votes in 90 minutes, is that right?
Correct. This is 337 votes, 337,000 votes in that
period of time.
Yes.
And when you look at this entire curve with all these spikes, can you calculate how much of a vote that accounted for Biden and how much for Trump?
Close to 600,000. I think our figures were about 570 some odd thousand that all those spikes represent over time.
For Biden?
Correct.
And how much for Trump?
I think it was a little over 3,200.
Now, just
to recap, guys, just so you guys understand this, all these spikes, this is in Pennsylvania. In all these spikes, when you add them up, it's 570,000 votes for Biden and 3,200 for Trump. I'm trying to give the most charitable understanding of this as I can. Let's say these are mail-in votes. How is it that Biden is getting, I mean, you do the percentage on me. How is it that for every 570,000 votes Biden gets, Trump gets 3,200 votes?
And on top of that, the postal votes had perfectly printed circles rather than a hand.
Not just that, Riccardo, some of them weren't even folded. They're meant to be folded when they're sent out. Oh, Guys, this is insane. So look, if you want to feel good about the election over there, this is not the show for you, okay? This is not the Donald Trump show. This is the Riccardo Bosi show. And even though it is that, I hold him accountable, let alone the Donald. I love the Donald, but I'm going to be honest about this, okay? This evidence needs to be brought before a court.
And it needs to be brought into Australian consciousness. And you know why? Because Untitled, the company that's involved in this in the United States, guess what? They're providing services to many of the Australian states for their vote count. And so this is another reason why the government would be very happy with a distraction, no matter how destructive to soldiers' lives. But Untitled is in Australia. Untitled is part of the problem, is contributing to this problem of vote fraud in the US. And I can guarantee you that the federal government and the state governments do not want the Australian people to know that the cause or the contributing factors in terms of the organisations that are responsible for this alleged vote fraud are currently being contracted to Australian states. Another reason why they're trying to distract you. Look at my right hand while the left is working.
Another anomaly for you guys. This is gonna blow your head because it actually helped. They used Australian statistics to show this. Tim Pool, he used Australian statistics. So in America, they don't have compulsory voting, okay? You know, they have, I think 180 million people that vote. Well, maybe 160, 170 million people that vote. Well, in Australia, we do have compulsory voting. And we have 96.8% of eligible voters in Australia that are actually enrolled. And only 91.9% of the eligible voters actually vote as of 2019 that we saw. So we have compulsory voting and only 91.9% of the people there vote. In the US, they've had over 100% of their population voting in some of these counties. And it just blowing my mind. And they keep saying, oh, it's because people were moving due to COVID. And I'm like, I wouldn't be so sure of that, guys. There's one county in Wisconsin where there are so many, you're going to love this. There used to be 30% more population in the past. And even now they got more votes than then. With the 30% lower population. That in itself should warrant, I think it's like Dayton or Wisconsin or something. I can't remember the county name. Guys, this is insane. And if you think that 74, 75, what was it? If you think that 74 million Americans have voted for Trump, and even a lot of Democrats are going to just go along with this, I think they're not going to vote. A lot of them aren't going to vote again. Another thing, if you're telling me that Joe Biden got 11 million more votes than Barack Obama, very charismatic guys by their own standards, at the height of Barack Obama's popularity in 2008, he got 69 million votes, and Joe Biden beat that by 11 million votes. Are you kidding me? So Donald Trump, in 2016, he got 63 million votes, and he beat that by 11 million votes. So he did well. But Joe Biden, oh my gosh, he's like, we've got to up the ante. We've got to keep printing. Forget about folding. We just got to get them out there. It's all right. We've got the media on our side. This is why he wasn't campaigning so hard.
You got to keep replacing the ink cartridges in the photocopier. That's it. That's all he was doing.
Good God. Okay. So look, I get it, guys. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, but I need to bring you guys back to earth for a second. This is my fear of a lot of the followers of the show and a lot of Trump supporters. They might be falling into the trap of the Russiagate conspiracy theorists fell into, where they just kept chasing after evidence, but they never ended up presenting any. There's a lot of evidence we're presenting, but I do want to prepare the viewers for a situation where Donald Trump might lose this. And there hasn't been a lot of talk about this from some of the pundits that a lot of the followers of the show might follow. But I do need you guys to understand what a Biden presidency looks like. just an FYI, Joe Biden, he actually once upon a time, he eulogized a member of the KKK, by the way. he eulogized one of these members who had the rank of Grand Cyclops, which is some rank. Insane. If Joe Biden wins, you can be sure that he will not want the Republicans to win another election again. They will add 2 more states, which they've been talking about. They will remove the Electoral College. They will pack the courts if they win the 2 Senate seats still up for grabs in Georgia right now. And it's not looking good, guys. It's not looking good. I need to bring you guys back to earth for a second. So in Georgia, there's still 2 Senate seats up for grabs because of some deferred election that happened a couple of months ago and someone retired. So there's two seats there. And that is set to take place on January 5th. As it stands, the Senate has 50 Republicans in, confirmed, and we've got 48 Democrats in. Now, if the Democrats win these 2 seats, they will win the majority in the Senate because Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker. If they get the majority, if they get the majority, they can pack the courts. And then Donald Trump's SCOTUS nomineeship.
Well, the upside to that is, let's say the Democrats win and it's 50-50 split with the President of the Senate casting the Vice President casting the deciding vote. Well, that's good for Joe, because that means Joe won't be suicided too soon because they can't afford to remove that president. Maybe. Oh no, they'll just replace
her.
Replace Kamala Harris with somebody else to make sure the vote. So maybe it's not so good news for Joe. So Joe's on his way out regardless. He has a life expectancy. Let's say it's just ticking down.
Yeah, because who replaces Kamala Harris? Nancy Pelosi.
Do they appoint a new one?
They have to. Well, I mean,
I know that the Speaker of the House is third in the chain of command if the president falls over.
Oh, you're right. They might appoint.
They might just appoint a vice president.
And that's a funny thing. She can appoint anyone she wants without an election, like Hillary Clinton.
Gosh, that would be surprising, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and you know what, Riccardo? Because they passed this thing where you can get rid of the president if they passed this in October, and I realized this late. Oh crap, they're not passing this thing where you can get rid of the president based on mental issues for Donald Trump. They're doing it for Joe Biden if he wins. So Kamala Harris, because it's triggered by the vice president. The vice president can say, no, he's out of order. The Senate and the House, I think they both vote on it as well, and then they can get rid of him. And then Hillary Clinton becomes vice president, does it to Kamala.
Yeah, your question was, what does a Joe Biden presidency look like? I don't think we're going to find out. I think what we're going to get is a globalist presidency. They're going to achieve their final goal. They had their man in Barack Obama, but now the gloves are off. The Great Reset's kicked in. They're going to go completely nuts, drunk with power, shutting down the country, destroying the economy.
Yeah, lockdowns across the place. They want to do a national lockdown, all 50 states. Last time they had some states, they never closed, Republican states, and they were booming. They never saw job losses. But we do have to look at some of the other appointments. I mean, he's appointing establishment faces. And by the way, this is your fault, progressives. You've got to take some blame. He's appointing all these corporate Democrats. He didn't appoint Bernie Sanders anywhere. He didn't appoint Elizabeth Warren anywhere.
I'm shocked, I tells you, shocked.
John Kerry, that guy's still alive. He ran against Joe Biden a while ago in the primaries. John Kerry, he was the foreign minister or something, Secretary of State. He's coming back. We've got a national security pick, Jake Sullivan, who said the US should encourage China's rise.
Doesn't this seem to lend truth to what I said earlier about the communist Chinese country? The nation of communist China was created by the American globalists. The evidence is right there, folks. The evidence is right there.
It's insane. The NSA pick, Jake Sullivan, he is clearly tied to the Russia hoax against Donald Trump. What he ended up doing was he was the one that wanted General Flynn's old job, the guy we were talking about before, who just got a pardon after falsely accusing him of colluding with Russia. these are the people, guys. This is the swamp. Joe Biden is getting a massive hose and chucking it into the swamp and filling it up.
But it's never been any different. You go back to the president's, let's start reasonably recent history from Eisenhower on. All of the big names in US politics have been globalist shills from the very beginning. Except Eisenhower wasn't, but he was described unkindly as someone who was one of those people who was impressed by billionaires because he thought if they were a billionaire they must be good at everything, and so he just accepted everything. Under Eisenhower, the communists had a great day penetrating just about every university, every aspect of the government because he was so unaware of what was going on, and so the big names, John Foster Dulles, you name it. They're all communist, globalist rather, shills.
Yeah.
For decades and decades and decades.
Yeah. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And like we're going to see the more offshoring of these jobs. You know, Joe Biden, he wants to bring in a $15 minimum wage. That's something Bernie Sanders was fighting for back in 2016. $15 minimum wage, increasing corporate taxation to 30%. So that's up 10%. We've got also he wants to engage in other similar deals to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which both Joe Biden and Donald Trump were against in 2016. He's bringing that back. All of those things, offshore jobs. If you have to pay higher taxes, you have to compete with overseas markets, so it's unequal, and you also have to deal with more regulation, $15 minimum wage, you're going to lose those jobs.
That's the strategy. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
It's insane. This is insane.
So that's not insane at all. It is an exquisitely designed and now, if Biden gets in, and well executed plan.
It's insane because I used to be a progressive, Riccardo, and the progressive Joel Jammal of 2016, 2017 would have opposed all of this. That's the crazy thing. So I've gone through a complete jump from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I agree on all of these problems. Yet we get people like Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, who I used to listen to, and now they're saying, yeah, they're kicking back to 2016, 2017 mode where they oppose the establishment. This is what Cenk said. He said, it's kabuki theatre, it's your phrase. The only people they care about is people inside the club. It's not Democrat versus Republicans. It's Democrats and Republicans versus the rest of us. See what he's done? He's taking the angle that we're progressives again now. I don't want to say he's controlled opposition, but do you see what they just done? I'm assuming that they're being honest here. I'm assuming that they're honest progressives and they are trying to bring in progressivism. What you've just done, as I've said multiple weeks ago, is you stopped the bull midway through, ruining the China shop and all of the things that was going on in the establishment. And now the establishment's in, they're going to kick you out again, which they just have. Bernie Sanders didn't get any seats. And on top of that, now they're going to board up the window so neither of us can get back in.
Well, you know what he's doing here? They're just shifting the goalposts further left. They have the most left insane party, the New Democrats. The old Democrats under Andrew Jackson were a very, very different organisation. And if you want to read about an interesting US president, read about Andrew Jackson. He used to fight duels, and he was actually shot a couple of times. But anyway,
I've heard.
So what they're doing is this Democrat Party, which is actually just communism and globalist shills, it is so far left that what the Young Turks are now doing, they're setting up the opposition to this extreme left organisation so they can keep ratcheting it further and further and further to a totalitarian system.
Exactly. Example, $15 minimum wage. Why stop there? $50.
20. Why not?
You know?
Forget about what it costs to run your company. Forget what it costs. It's all part of the plan, and these guys are back in the game now.
Yeah.
It's like the ABC. They say they're accused of never criticising the left. Oh yeah, they do. They criticise the left from an extreme left position. They always criticise everybody from an extreme left. So it doesn't matter how left you are.
Yeah.
They are more left.
Exactly.
And so it's this great lie.
Exactly.
And this is what they're setting up. These guys are happy. They've got a job now. They can start calling communist Biden, globalist Biden, pedophile Biden, not left enough. It was like me. I'm not white. I'm a white supremacist, but not white supremacist enough.
Yeah.
I'm an anti-Semite, but I'm not anti-Semite enough. I'm a Zionist, but I'm not Zionist enough. It's just It is just a joke.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people are falling for it.
Yeah. And remember on the ABC on Q&A, Julia Gillard being lambasted, saying, "Why didn't you support gay marriage earlier? It's not good enough." First female Prime Minister of Australia being thrown under the progressive bus. Isn't that amazing?
No, it's the way they do it.
And the same with guys. If you think they're done with Obama, but don't forget, guys. I'm not originally a conservative. I'm a progressive. These two taught me all the best progressive attacks on the establishment.
Oh, look, I love these guys, the Young Turks.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
them. The best Young Turk clip I like, and they've taken it off YouTube, is Trump's election result.
Yeah.
And what's his name?
Cenk Uygur, yeah.
Cenk, yeah.
Yeah.
Watching him tear his party dress, clutch his pearls, run around with his hair on fire as the evening progressed. That's the best clip ever. If you can find it, send me a link.
And you see how genuine he was on the night. Because on the night he was saying, this is your fault, corporate Democrats. We're coming after you. And then he set up this big Democratic movement that ended up getting AOC actually elected and a bunch of the other progressives elected. And then you've also got Anna Kasparian. I'll just read out this quote. If Biden is unwilling to do what it takes to close the gap between the rich and the poor in this country, I think he's going to end up paving the way for someone even worse than Donald Trump. Now, when she says worse, I just mean, it sounds like conservative to me. I'm like, great.
Goodness me.
But you know what, there is a kernel of truth in that, Riccardo, and I've said this to you privately before, and I'm really showing my cards here. If A1 fails, we are going to be we're going to be leaving a door open to true radicalism on the right.
We won't fail.
Yeah.
There's no other organisation in this country, none, that has the and I showed it to you a few weeks back, who has a strategic intention as clear as us, as moral as us, as accurate as us, as achievable as us. And there's no organisation, whether it's a political party or a lobby group, that has the understanding of the depth and nature of the problem, and then has the wit to put together and execute a plan more elegant than the one that's been executed against us. And we're doing on the smell of an oily rag. And we're getting people. We got people. See, the left has to buy people through the media. Without the media's lies, and it's just bald-faced lies, we know that. But without the bald-faced lies, the average punter would see the common sense if they were given the facts. We don't need that. And we're just getting people because we're getting people because they hear the message, and it's a very slow growth, and I like that. It's a very, very organic spreading of the word, and it's getting out there, and people are buying in because I like what you're saying. In fact, last night, we had our last Zoom, as I said, and it was the Northern Territory, and we had an Aboriginal chap on, and he loved what A1's doing. And not because we've got a great policy for First Nations people, which we do. Oh, and watch Scott Morrison. He's going to, I bet you, it's a prediction, he's going to come out with some policy announcement about a treaty with the Aborigines or something to make it look like he's doing something. They won't actually do it, but he'll come out with an announcement. There's an old favourite with Parliament, with governments. They just re-announce something that was announced 6 months earlier. But anyway, watch this space. Anyway, we had this Zoom on the NT, and we had a fantastic discussion. But this guy, the Aboriginal guy, was aware of exactly what's going on and why. And he calls them white devils. He said, these guys, and black devils too, these black and white devils, they get in there and they take the $33 billion a year. And the average Jackie and the Nulla doesn't see any of it. And he's concerned for his family, he's concerned for his people, he's concerned for everything. We're doing fine. And A1 will not fail because we're actually appealing to what is... It's a visceral response in every human, on this decent human. You can keep the pedos and the sociopaths out, but each decent human looks at what we stand for and they love it. They love the idea of it. And the fact that we're pushing power, we're pushing authority as far down as we can. As I said to them, your area of operations, using military analogy, is your state electorate. Own it, make it yours, find out what's going on. And if you are fortunate enough to represent them, if you win their support, because we don't select the candidates, you do. And we don't sack the candidates, you do.
That's right.
If you get that job, then we expect you to fight for your electorate and own that electorate. That's yours. And that's where the decisions get made. And we push that authority down as far as we can. And then the media will be irrelevant because they'll know what's actually going on a real level in their electorate. And they'll watch the media and think, this is rubbish. Let's turn off the news because we don't need news from the free-to-air. We don't need news from the public broadcasters either. We'll watch the entertainment, happy for that. But we're fine. A1's going to win. There's nothing like us anywhere. Anywhere. This is a world first. This is a national first. and they don't know how to take us. They can't
don't.
attack us.
Yeah, we're learning too quickly.
There's nothing. Because we're like that furry mammal. It didn't actually happen, but you get the analogy. We're that furry mammal, that warm-blooded creature dancing between these giant dinosaurs that can't move quickly. Oh no, they are the dinosaurs. Their days are numbered.
Yeah.
We're good. We're gonna.
Yeah.
We will win.
Yeah, I never tell people these. I only tell the people to these lessons to people like yourself. But there are little tricks we're picking up from watching overseas that when we try them in Australia, they don't know how to combat them because it's never been tried before. Because reality check, Australian politicians aren't that creative. They can only copy the models that they've seen overseas. That's why I keep referring to this as a chapter model. Australia, the US and the UK, they've deteriorated more than us, but we can learn from that and we can be at the cutting edge of the solutions. And sometimes we export the solutions, believe it or not.
Well, we're actually going outside the model because I mentioned once before, one of my jobs in Special Ops was the Director of Capability Development, Future Warfare Development, the rest of it. And my goodness me, the military mind is not the most creative on the planet. Let's just face that. Let's face that fact. Most minds aren't creative, but military. Yeah. And what that compelled me to learn to do was dance outside the parameters that they were living in. And we came up with amazing ideas and things. Some were adopted 10, 20 years later, some not at all, and that's fine. That's why I'm quite confident. This is, whilst the process of establishing a political party and then becoming the party of government is the first for me, what I've learned and what our team is doing is we learn really quickly. And it's the old story, make more mistakes faster than everybody else. Not catastrophic failure, but make more mistakes faster than everybody else. And so what doesn't work, once that's all finished, what you're left with does work. But we just apply imagination.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a clever one. How about we tell the truth? Wow, unique. How about we don't mince words?
Yeah.
You said it a long time ago. Integrity is the new black.
Yeah.
Trust is the new black.
That's right. My viewers would end me if it came out that I was taking money from the Liberal Party. They would end me. Controlled opposition.
Oh, absolutely. Boom. And it never ceases to amaze me. And how can I say this politely without being too offensive?
Just
there are those well-established individuals who are still swayed by beautiful words and high intent. And isn't it wonderful that we have a man like this in our parliament? This was a comment about Hastie's piece, which was beautifully written, poignant, lovely.
Oh, sure. but content,
completely useless and irrelevant because he didn't nail the actual point.
Yeah.
And he writes like a commentator instead of like a member of the government, the parliament, with a responsibility. And so he still sways people with these honeyed words.
Yep.
Irrelevant. Yep. The emperor's naked. Just say it.
Yeah.
Naked. Butt naked. No clothes.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that fairy tale. And everybody thinks, yes, I would say that the emperor's naked. No, they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't.
Wouldn't?
They wouldn't. Everyone thinks they would have protected the Jews from the Nazis.
Yeah, everyone thinks they'd do that. Everyone thinks that. No, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Just face facts. You're scared. You're cowards. You're wusses.
Yeah.
I get it. Just admit it.
Yeah. But
and this applies to billionaires and it applies to everybody. Oh, I had no choice. I had to sell out to China. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You could have made a moral decision and say, you know what, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But you made your bed, you lie on it.
That's right.
See, I cock up, but I tell the truth. I can hang me.
Yeah.
Go for it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's something more important than my sense of self-esteem based on a lie today.
Yeah.
There's a bigger picture at play here.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, forget any spiritual values you might have. I've got children, and they have to see a man, an honourable man. That's the standard. And if they see me go down in a heap, then so be it. But what I will never do is let them see me be anything less than honourable, less than straight, less than fill in the blank, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because they need, it takes a special kind of parent, mother and father, to raise a boy to honourable manhood and a girl to honourable womanhood. And every day you're on show. Every day.
Yeah. Can't drop the ball.
You can't do it, not once.
Not once. Yeah.
So that's why A1's going to succeed.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, just good people, good, moral, decent people. And I'll tell you what, the great news is most Australians are.
They are. And you know what's funny? Peter Hitchens made this point this year because we've got all this coronavirus stuff going on. We've got the groupthink going on with Black Lives Matter. And he said that I think at this point we know which people would have been the ones that hid the Jews away or said the emperor has no clothes. I thought that was quite a profound statement coming from a guy as well read on history as him, and someone who used to be a Bolshevik as well, actually, in Russia. And he's right. Guys, if you're being laughed at, think about why you're being laughed at, because maybe you are being stupid, maybe you aren't rooting your opinions in facts. But then just consider the evidence and be like, no, maybe I am right. Find people that are like-minded to you. Don't get tribalist on me. Go fight. You need to always keep an eye on what the media is doing. As much as I hate the ABC's Q&A, I still watch it, even though it gives me high blood pressure, because I need to know what they're thinking. If I don't know what they're thinking, then I'm going to look like a fool when I go debate them. So that's the point. You need to be well-rounded. Don't just come to this show. Go to multiple different shows and become a well-rounded intellect.
Yeah, but to get back to this courage to do what you've got to do, though.
Yeah.
You know, children live for themselves, and it's a world of fear. And then you start to live for, you become a parent, let's say, or you get a pet. It makes a difference, but you get my drift. You're living for something else, living thing else. And then you live for an ideal. But then you live for the highest good there is, and once you do that, you're fearless.
Yeah.
You don't look forward to pain, but you're utterly fearless. It makes no... See, it's not hard to tell the truth when you know that that's what you've got to do.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we go back to Angus again and the cover-up. Yeah. Oh, sorry, not the cover-up, what do we call it? The management of this issue.
Yeah.
These people are going to live forever with the ignominy of having lied.
Yeah.
Every one of those officers know they cocked up. God doesn't create hell. We create our own hell. And we can do it on earth and we can do it in the afterlife. Either way, we make our own hell.
That's right.
And I can bet you these guys, I sleep like a baby at night because I've cocked up, but I admit it. No problem. Moving right along. I'm good. These other guys, they're tossing and turning. Yeah. They're waking up in a cold sweat at 3 a.m. The wife says, what's up? Oh, nothing, dear. They go downstairs and stare at the screen, trying to figure out how they get out of this hole. Well, there's only one way. Tell the truth. Move on. Take the hit. Amen. Set yourself free.
Amen. Let's finish these last few points quickly with Joe Biden. He's going to grant amnesty to 11 million illegal aliens. Please note, we don't actually know that it's 11 million. They've been using that statistic for a few decades now. It could be way more illegal immigrants, and some of which voting, because don't forget, guys, in most states, they pretty much, I think they're basically ruled out voting with ID. You need ID for everything, getting a gun, getting a driving license, literally everything. But you don't need to vote when you go vote. You don't need to show your ID when you're voting. That's insane. And we've talked about this in the past. Remember Dr. Robert Epstein, the whistleblower, not the whistleblower, the guy that studies this stuff. In 2016, he said that anywhere from 2.6 to 10.4 million votes were shifted from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton due to big tech, Google, Facebook, Twitter. Well, this year he said Google shifted a minimum of 6 million votes in 2020. Minimum, guys. And don't forget, Google was their parent company, ABC, whatever, you can look it up, parent company of Google, find it. They were the biggest donor of the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. I wonder how much they gave this year. Let's find out. So this psychologist, he using his search engine, he revealed on Tucker Carlson's show that basically 6 million votes were shifted. And it's, if you look into the stats on this, guys, it's very, very scary. And I look forward to hearing him testify before Congress if the Republicans win Congress. But just briefly on that, I don't think the Republicans are going to win the Congress. I think it's looking very bad for them right now. They're going to fight tooth and nail to win these 2 Georgia seats. But if they lose, and I think they will lose, why? Because Donald Trump won't be there.
Sorry, Congress or Senate?
Senate, sorry. Senate. Yeah. So with Senate, guys, as I said before, 2 Georgia seats are up for re-election. And in January 5th, I don't think they're going to win them. Why? Because Donald Trump in 2018, he wasn't there to give the Republicans the boost that they needed. And we saw a slow blue wave, partly due to mail-in ballots, but we saw a slow blue wave nonetheless. Why? Because Republicans, It's the same problems before, guys. The Republicans aren't able to get people out. Donald Trump got 11 million more votes than 2016 because he is not a Republican. I keep saying this. He's not a Republican. He's anti-war. He's lifted black people out of poverty. This year he got 17% of the black vote, 35% of the Hispanic vote. You're not going to get that with normal Republicans. So when you don't have, on election day, when you don't have Donald Trump you're also voting for, you're going to have a situation where they're not going to vote for the Republicans down ballot because Donald Trump's not out there. You won't get them out to vote. And that's the warning I see. And if the Senate goes blue, then we're screwed. I'm just going to put it that way for you. I'm going to be most likely censored, so I'm going to have to go to parlor. But look, this is the reality I need to bring you guys back to earth on. It's not looking good, and I want to teach you guys you can lose, and this is how. So pretty much the future's in the hands of the Americans right now in terms of a bunch of different things. We've got to sort our crap out in Australia, but this is a reality of America, guys. So when you find out that the Kraken doesn't turn up and it just ends up being a small calamari, then don't be disappointed that, because we heard this week that we heard this week that what was her name? Something Powell, was it? Sidney Powell was finding all this stuff around the place, but the Trump campaign distanced themselves from her this week. Because,
no, not really.
You don't think so? You think it's all part of the plan?
No, because she never claimed to be part of the campaign.
You're right.
She kept saying she's working with them, but she is representing the American people and happens to be collaborating with the Trump campaign, but she never said she was part of the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
The Trump campaign never said she was part of the Trump campaign, and they were just clarifying. And now people have leapt on that and said, Trump's sacked. No, she's just a feisty, hard-nosed lawyer who knows exactly what's going on, and she wanted to help. She's one of those pushy types, which is what you need. And she probably barged away and said, I'm going to help you whether you like it or not. And Rudy probably went, okay.
Okay, I can't. Can I say no?
Can I say no? Exactly. No, so I'm not worried about that in the slightest. That's just... That's just misquoting the situation, and people know that.
No, me too. But I do want to bring it to your attention, guys, because this is a situation where we haven't had any of these court wins come through yet. Now, I'm not talking about the 30 ones that were thrown out of court. Those actually weren't Trump's. They weren't Trump's lawsuits. They were other people's, because you can sue too. Other people can sue, and those 30 or so lawsuits had nothing to do with the Trump campaign. This was other people of their own volition. Trump only has like 3 or 4 out there right now. I think there's one that's been set back, but they're refiling. And don't forget, if it gets set back, it goes to the Supreme Court, okay? So, and that's where you want to be. So patience. We haven't seen a legal success yet, but when it comes through, because don't forget, we did have Pennsylvania, which ended up coming, the vote certification got blocked by a judge there. So that's good. But until we see that, we've got nothing to report yet. We need to see the evidence presented in a court, and we need to see a situation where we see some of these states flip. We haven't seen that yet. So a lot of people are attacking Tucker Carlson and Fox News. Attack them all you want on the legitimate stuff, but until we see some evidence, we can't act like the Russiagate people. I just want to bring you guys back to earth. Last few things. Trump was wealthy before he got elected. He was a billionaire before he got elected. He lost money once he got elected. That's why he paid so little tax in 2016, 2017. Remember that, guys? Yep. I can't say the same for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a perfect correlation with his career elevation and his family's wealth being created. In fact, when Joe Biden was put in charge of the operations in Iraq, his brother just happened to get appointed to do this massive building project over in Iraq. Isn't that funny? I want to finish with this last clip. It's from Tim Pool. It's quite moving, but I think it encapsulates what the emotions I sort of want you guys to sort of feel. If you don't speak up, if you don't get involved, then things can turn very badly very quickly. And I guess this is sort of my way of showing you guys that.
And this is what I was thinking. You know what, man? I thought if Joe Biden wins, then this whole country is going to go so far woke, so fast, your head will spin.
By the way, this is in June, guys. This is in June.
And no one will do anything about it. But if Trump wins, the insane woke people will start some kind of civil war. I think that...
They'll try.
No, listen. If Biden wins, then all of these conservatives and all of these people who are complaining about the stuff will sit on their hands and say, oh, well, I don't like it. They'll do nothing about it. Nothing will happen.
No,
These conversations have been happening in circles like the intellectual dark web, and on shows like Joe Rogan, where the biggest podcast in the world routinely rags
podcast in the world
is completely unable to stop the rapid transformation of society and the destruction of our founding fathers and the general who defeated the Confederates.
Dude.
Even though the Joe Rogan podcast has been around for a decade, and he's hosted Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and the Weinstein brothers and Dave Rubin and Crowder, and we've had these conversations over and over and over again. Every single American who is not in that 8% fringe gets on their knees and says, please leave me alone whenever someone comes to them and threatens their job. They will not stand up for themselves. That's what I've been saying about what they need to do. People need to do something, and the first step is telling your boss, shut up or I quit. But they won't. Video games get made that are ridiculous, that have insane plots and insane ideologies. People complain about it. They get called Nazis in the press.
Yep.
And the regular people know it's crazy. They're watching their cities burn down. And then what happens when they rip down Thomas Jefferson? Nothing.
You're
and
right.
the Democrats in New York City are calling now for Thomas Jefferson to be removed from the New York City Council chamber. And where are our politicians? Where are the regular Americans, the silent majority, to stand up and say, we'll be silent no longer? Nowhere to be found. What are they going to do? They're going to go in the voting booth and say, I'm going to pull the lever for Trump, who in the past 4 years has been unable to stop any of this. We've had a great economy. A lot of people made a lot of money. And what's happened? It's been worse. So here's what I think is going to happen. If Trump wins, the left will go insane and burn it all to the ground. And regular people will hide in their homes with their newly found love of guns. And they'll say, oh no, what do we do? And the left will probably gain tons of ground and go insane. And people will say, please leave me alone. And if Joe Biden wins, they'll take over all our cultural institutions. They'll put psychotic and insane definitions in our dictionary, and they will take over, and regular Americans will say, please, for the love of God, just leave me alone. And they never will. They'll never stop coming. They will take your job away. They will come for your parents. You will do something wrong, they'll fire your mom. They'll come to your house with fireworks and guns, and Americans will still just say, please, just leave me alone. And that's how it is. Even in the Revolutionary War, most people, the largest majority of people, were non-initiated. There was a small faction saying no revolution. There was a larger faction saying revolution. And the bulk said, please just leave me alone. So long as we've been dealing with the psychotic cancel culture, and I've been hearing about people like James Lindsay saying this, and Coleman Hughes saying, I get messages all the time from people saying, this is insane and must stop. Well, where are you to stand up at your job and tell your boss to shut up when he says, I'm going to put out this bland brand message that panders to these woke lunatics? Where are you to say, if you do that, I quit? They say, fine, quit. Okay, I will. And I'll go start my own company. Nowhere to be found. So we have these conversations, and what happens? I'm under threat from being banned every single day. I just had a video today labeled as hate speech, and when I asked them to overturn it, they said, not this one. You're on thin ice, but don't worry, Tim, you mostly play by the rules. We're okay with what you say. So how long until they cut my channel off? And they've been doing it over and over again for the past several years, and people are nowhere to be found. Now, of course, they go online and they'll post things, but then when it comes to their real life job, when it comes to the woke mob coming for them, they just bend the knee and they beg, please, woke lunatics, just don't hurt me and I'll leave you alone. I'll let you have whatever you want, because I don't care about the future for my children. I don't care about where this country goes. I don't care about all the statues they've just destroyed. And then what happens? The Republicans, nowhere to be found.
You're absolutely right.
I have no confidence in any of these people to do anything. I can sit here all day and guess what? Smack talk me all day and night. Say, Tim Pool, all you do is complain about things. You're completely right. But at least I quit my job. When I worked for Disney and they said, lie to the public, I said, fuck you. And I told them, cut my contract off. And they said, no. Welcome to the golden handcuffs, Tim. You got one more year under lock and key. And then I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do what you want. And then finally it came to August and I said, bye-bye, I'm going to go do my own thing. And guess what? It worked. So where the fuck is everybody else? Nowhere to fucking be found. Congratulations, we're demonetized. I don't give a shit at this point. No one is doing anything. And for years, I've routinely said, you need to stand up for yourself and tell these people to back off. And you won't do it. Maybe you guys will, but most people won't. So there's people online complaining all day and night. Yep. Okay, walk away. Stop. They won't do it. So why should I have any confidence after a decade of this? I'm willing to walk away and go live in the woods when all this just falls apart. I walked away from working with a Disney company that was offering to pay me fat cash if I just played ball.
Yep.
And I said, no, I won't do it. And you know what they did at that company? They called me a white supremacist. The white people at this company who are getting fat cash from Disney called me, the mixed race guy, the white supremacist.
Yep.
And I didn't care. I said, dude, you know, man, my worst case scenario is I go and skate and mind my own business.
Why do you?
Look, it's full on. And as I said, guys, America's deteriorated that far. And that's, you know, you can lose if you do nothing. And if you sit on your hands, this is what's going to happen, guys. That's a funny thing.
It's funny watching that because I understand exactly what he's saying. And to a point, he's exactly right. Too many people do sit on their hands, and I'll rant and rave at. It's not the average people that get me going. It's the Peter Credlins, the Andrew Bolts, the Alan Jones, and Paul Murray who pretend to care but don't. Not enough. Because the average punter can't start their own job. You just can't say, "Go write a screenplay, start your own business." You just can't do that because not everyone. It's not in them. Not everyone can be a soldier. Not everyone can be a lawyer. Not everyone can be a surgeon. Not everybody can be an accountant. Okay, there are just we are designed and optimized and have natural predispositions to certain behaviors and skill sets. You know, physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually, we're all very different, and we're optimized for a role in life. So telling people to quit your job, yeah, okay, got it. The poor kid with his bride and a 2.5-year-old, they're working 2.5 jobs and they're barely making it ends meet. You know, we get, and these are the people that I love so much, we get donations from people, $5 and $10. That's our most common, 20 if you're lucky. Now, we get bigger ones, but very few. And these people, that's all they can bloody afford. Like that 74-year-old sweet young thing that gave me a call. You know, $10, brilliant, thank you. I got this gift from my wife. It's a crucifix. Let me just get it off for you because this tells a story. It's a crucifix, and it's quite lovely. But in the centre, you can see a dark, what looks like a dark coin. Now that's a mite from the time of Jesus in Palestine. And for those of you who might remember the story, Jesus was standing at the front of the temple with the disciples, and they were watching people give their contributions to the temple. You know, rich people putting lots of money in, and this widow wandered up, and she threw in a mite, one of these coins, is the equivalent of a cent, basically, and this is an actual mite. And the disciples allegedly scoffed at how little she put in, and Jesus said, no, she put in more than everybody else because she had least to give. And there's a profound lesson in that, folks. Everybody's got to pay one way or another. You've got to give what you can. Now, if you can't quit your job, I get that. I really do. But A1 is supported by the most profoundly decent, kind, generous, tough people. And they will give $5, $10, $20. And the phone goes off, bing, bing. And I love hearing it because there's another $20, another $20, another $5, another $10. And as I think I mentioned a couple of weeks back, a woman put in $100 and she rang up and said, "Can I have it back? My husband growled at me. Couldn't afford it." And we're fine with that. That's absolutely fine. We get it. Yeah. But everybody's got to pay. We want to save this country. Do what you can. I told you the story about the lovely old dear that rang up. She said, "I can't be a politician." I said, "Can you make lamingtons and coffee?" She said, "Absolutely." I said, "Great. There's a job for everybody, but do what you can," because what he says is dead right. Now, once again, I'm really optimistic. We won't get everybody, but we will get enough. And we only need enough to win this country back. And I mean it. We only need enough, and we will. This veneer of power that the politicians, the judges, the coppers, it's just a veneer. It's wafer thin. You poke it with your finger and it falls apart. Yeah. And so there you go, guys. He's right, but he's wrong. We will win. We will win. We have the people in Australia who can do this. Yeah. And we don't need everybody. We just need enough. And we're getting them.
I'm looking forward to this tour of Queensland. I think it's really going to help. A lot of people have been donating, I think to both of us actually this last week, individually, but both of us. And that's where the money is going right now, guys. We really want to get up there and spread the good news. We want to meet all the 2 million people or so people around the country, all the faces, I'm sure there'll be tours down the line in the next few years for all the other states.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing, as I said, Northern New South Wales and Queensland for the next 5 weeks. Take a short break over the new year, and then we'll start Southern New South Wales and either Victoria or South Australia, depending on which state is open. Vic, probably, if it's open, they need more help than most.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be January, February, and then March, April will be Adelaide and WA and NT.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of support. The word's getting out there. And man, last night the NT one, the black guy and the white guy side by side, and the four of us, was myself, my wife, and these two key people having a chat. And goodness me, I got to tell you, it was a love fest.
Yeah,
it's just
awesome.
online, just decency, bringing it all together.
That's awesome. If I've had a number of people in Western Australia, of all places, I don't know anyone from Western Australia except a lot of the ones that have been reaching out. I mean, special mention to you, Jasmine. You're doing a phenomenal job over there, and I get it. It can be daunting, not having people around you, but that's going to change once you start seeing. And that's why we want to have these events, so we can show you it's not just you. This is the magic of Nigel Farage that we saw last week, and also Donald Trump. Pennsylvania, 50,000 people at a march. Phenomenal stuff.
We can do it.
We can do it.
We can do this.
Absolutely.
We can do this.
Yeah. And guys, Riccardo's going to be speaking at the Freedom Day March in Brisbane. So that's going to be great. So I am looking forward to this very much. Let's end it there, guys. Continue to support the show. Thank you again to the donors of the show. You make this possible. And I will see you guys next week on the Arc on the road. Thank you, Riccardo.
Thanks, Joel.